Hey there, have you ever had that sinking feeling? When you're staring at a residential lease agreement, it's just pages and pages of tiny text and confusing legal jargon. You are definitely not alone. These things are dense, they can be super intimidating, but they are so important.
But don't you worry, because today we're going to crack the code. We are going to walk through a standard lease agreement section by section and turn that scary legal document into a practical guide. My goal is that by the end of this, you will be able to sign that dotted line with absolute confidence. So let's get into it. So here's our roadmap. We're going to follow what I like to call the tenant's journey. We'll start with the basics, then we'll follow the money. After that, we'll cover the rules for living in your space, understand the landlord side of things, and finally, take a look at how it all comes to an end.
First up, the absolute fundamentals. This first section of any lease, this is the foundation for everything else. It sets up the who, what, where, and for how long. Before we really dive in, it helps to kind of reframe what a lease actually is. A lot of people see it as a trap, but it's not. Really, just think of it as the official rulebook for your home, maybe even its constitution. It just lays out the rights and responsibilities for everybody so things can run smoothly. So right at the very top of the lease, you're going to find these three key pillars. First, the parties, that's you and the landlord, by name. Then the property, the specific full address you're renting. And so critically, the duration, the exact start date and the exact end date of your agreement. But life happens, right? What if things don't go exactly to plan? What if the apartment just isn't ready on that official start date? This is a really common worry, and any good lease is going to address it. See, a well-written lease protects both of you. So if the landlord can't give you the keys on day one for some reason, the lease usually gives you the right to terminate the agreement. But on the flip side, if you're the one who doesn't move in, you're still on the hook for the rent. It is absolutely a two-way street. All right, let's move on to the section that, let's be honest, most people flip to first, the money. This part of the lease is going to outline every single one of your financial obligations. Okay, this is the big one, right? The rent amount. The lease makes that number crystal clear. But just as important, it tells you when it's due, usually the first of the month, and how you have to pay it. Is it a check? An online portal? You really want to pay close attention to those details. So what happens if you pay late? Well, it can kick off a pretty serious chain reaction. First, if you miss the due date, boom, a late fee probably gets tacked on. If you still don't pay, the landlord will likely send a formal written demand for the money. And if you ignore that, that can be grounds to terminate the lease, which could lead to eviction. It's a serious process, and it's all laid out right there in the contract. And of course, it's not just the rent. Your lease is also going to detail other costs, like the security deposit, which utilities are on you, any fees if you have a pet, and it'll explain how they calculate prorated rent if you happen to move in on, say, the 15th of the month. Okay, now that we've got the money sorted out, let's talk about the day-to-day experience of actually living there. This next section covers all the rules about how you use and take care of the property. So, what's your number one job as a tenant? At its core, it's actually pretty simple. You have to maintain the home. That just means not causing any damage and keeping it reasonably clean and safe while you're living there. We all want to make a place feel like our own, right? We want to hang pictures, maybe paint a wall. And that leads to probably one of the most common questions tenants have. What am I allowed to change? And the answer is almost always a clear no, unless you ask first. Leases are super specific about this. You cannot make any alterations without getting written consent from the landlord beforehand. A quick, sure, go ahead in the hallway isn't enough. You need that permission in writing to protect yourself later on. And beyond painting, the lease is full of other house rules to remember. For example, you can't just decide to sublease your apartment to a friend without getting permission. There might be a limit on how long guests can stay. You probably need to tell your landlord if you're going to be away for a long trip. And of course, you have a duty not to be a nuisance to your neighbors. It's all about making sure everyone can live peacefully. Okay, now you're going to be reading along, feeling good, and then bam, you hit a sentence like this. It's from Clause 18, and it's pure legalese. Indemnify and hold landlord harmless. What on earth does that actually mean? Let's translate that into plain English. It just means that if an accident happens on the property because of something you or your guests did or didn't do, you're the one who's financially on the hook, not the landlord. So, if your body slips on a spill you forgot to clean up, this clause says you're liable. This, by the way, is a huge reason why renter's insurance is so important.
So far, we've talked a lot about what you have to do. But remember, a lease is a two-way street. So now let's flip the script and take a look at the landlord side of the bargain, their obligations and their rights. And right here, you see the essential balance of the whole relationship. On the one hand, you have the right to quiet enjoyment. That's the landlord's promise that you get to live in your home peacefully without them constantly bothering you. But on the other hand, the landlord has the right to access. They can enter your place for things like repairs or inspections, but, and this is the important part, they almost always have to give you proper notice first. Well, all good things come to an end, and that includes your lease term. This final section covers how the whole relationship wraps up, whether it's a smooth, planned move out or something a little more complicated. When it's time to pack up and move out, the lease sets the standard for how you should leave the place. You're expected to return it in the same condition it was in when you got the keys. The key phrase here, though, is minus normal wear and tear. A few scuff marks on the paint from your sofa, that's normal wear and tear. A giant hole you punched in the wall, that is not. Okay, listen up, because this is arguably the most important warning I can give you. You need to be on the lookout for clauses where you might be signing away important legal rights without even realizing it. This example here shows a tenant waiving the warranty of habitability. That's a basic protection in many places that says your landlord has to provide a livable home. Reading every single word is so crucial because you don't want to give up rights you didn't even know you had. So we've come full circle. A lease isn't just some rental document, it's the constitution for your home. It defines the rights, the rules, and the responsibilities for everyone living there. So the only question left is, with everything you know now, are you ready to sit down and decode yours?